Greetings, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I am Sister Maksha. So if you can hear me, let me know. Put a one in the chat. Say something to me. I want to greet everyone in the space. Greetings, Chief Yuya. Shabbat Shalom. And I'll wait for you all to jump on in and come on into the space. It is always a beautiful experience to be able to connect and meet with everyone. All right. Am I loud and clear? All right. Okay, I see it. We hear you. One. All right. Good, good, good. Thank you. All right. So we continue. We're going to continue with our conversations around family structure. And, this Sabbath, we're opening up our conversations around family structure and mastering plurality. But before we jump in, I want to just say, a few words of thanks. I want to give thanks to the Most High for bringing us through this strong and allowing us to be able to walk and affirm that we can and will do those things that are promised, right, to us. And I want to give praise and thanks to the Most High for allowing Chief Yuya to create this space for us to meet and commune and to build. So, and to also give thanks for the text that we're going to be exploring today. That is the Anu Way, written by Chief Yuya, and there are lots of other texts too, but I'm just gonna jump into today's preface. But before I do, let me greet Brother Antonio and Sister Aquia as well. Give thanks for joining. This book is not to be read only once. Read the words of this book of knowledge and wisdom out loud. Discuss the convictions of this work with your Anu brothers and sisters. Share this information with your people. This publication should be taken out of, this publication should be read daily. Every line in this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be deliberated. All right. And so that preface comes from the Anu Way. So we are now, again, as I said, in the section of family structure, paragraph 5, mastering plurality. And this section on family structure is real serious, y'all. So I'll say this. Sometimes we don't like to hear truth, right? Some don't like to hear truth or are not receptive to truth. So before I even begin to read the paragraph, I just wanted to say humility is what's required, right? So, most people say, okay, well, what will prevent somebody from being receptive to truth? It's humility. And humility comes from the word humus or earth, and it's connecting to the ground, right? That actually makes us receptive to all of the vibrations and everything that's around us, that's coming up from the earth. So humility is required to be receptive to truth. So for those of you who are joining us in this space and you're going to embark on this journey with us, bring humility on in with you this evening. All right. And that allows us to listen and receive all of the various psychologies and all of the various ways of being that's around us, right? And this message is not just for those in the chat, but it's for anyone who's listening. It opens us up. So I'll read the paragraph that we'll be exploring today. A great man can manage the dynamics of several women and children concurrently. A superior man knows himself well enough to determine if this is the best family arrangement for his family or not. We need not pretend that we are designed of the same fabrics of those who can support a plural bond when we are not. If a man is beyond the age of 40 and he still has not mastered his reptilian, bestial, and human mind, he's not ready for a union of any sort, as he has not unified with his own inner workings as of yet. It is easy to say you must have more than one, but with more comes more onus. So that's really important to think about. And we'll talk about that toward the end too. Okay. I'm just gonna share a little bit now in order to actually follow the dialogue and the conversation. I want to encourage you to actually watch the last Shema video with Brother Antonio's breakdown on the family arrangement that we're talking about now. That is the family arrangement of plural households and kingdom building, nation building. That's a critical context to this evening's build. And this is what we're referring to when you hear family arrangement, right? We're actually talking about a truth that has been explained already. So we are building on that foundation. So let's jump in, right? A great man can manage the dynamics of several women and children concurrently. So as I read this piece, there's so many portions that stick out. The first piece actually refers to the idea of the type of man, a great man. That sticks out. The dynamics of several women also sticks out as well. These are important pieces to actually zoom in on. But then I started to think about the fact that we have one man at the helm of this household, right? And underneath his coverage, his protection and direction would be more than one woman. And of course, as kingdom builders and nation builders, you have to have youth, you have to have children. That's a critical component. And so with many women, or many women will be equal to many children. There's a reason I thought of the word helm. And so as I'm gonna jump in and share what my thoughts were as I read through this, but I want you to jump in and share, when you hear the word helm, what vision actually comes to mind? What visuals do you actually see when you hear that word helm? All right, so just jump in the chat, put it on in there really quickly. 1 word, 2 words, doesn't have to be long. I am going to acknowledge now that there is a 20-second delay, so there's always a little bit of downtime in between. All right. The reason I used helm is because when I think of okay, I saw one response. Brother Antonio says a ship. All right, good. I really like you took the idea, the visual right up my head. So when we think of helm, most times we understand that helm actually refers to head, right? It's that position of control or position of leadership. But I also thought of helm because of the fact that a helm is actually a lever that's connected to the rudder of a ship. And that, of course, we all know, like, the rudder of a ship actually helps with the navigation. That's what allows for the ship to strategically navigate all those waters, right? So that directly connects to what the purpose of a man is in the homestead, right? As he manages all these different dynamics, okay? And so we see here there's a steering. All right, so I'm gonna jump in and move on. Navigator, I see the wheel. I see controller, ship waves, leader, head. All right, helps to steer and direct. Exactly. Exactly. So he is steering. I like that term. He is steering the ship, expertly navigating the feminine chaos and all of that watery energy of the women that he is responsible for in his steed, as any more man should be able to do, right? That navigation piece is it's inbred, right? But there's also the dynamic of the women. And that dynamic actually refers to the different characteristics, the different personalities, the different characters, and of course, the youth as well. Okay, so he's not going to skip a beat when it comes to really steering and controlling and manning that ship. So that visual is exactly what I want us to stick with this during this build, the visual of a ship, right? This idea of a navigator who can see beyond the scope of many of the others who are inside of that plural bond, right? And it makes me also think about Heru view, or what I call a Heru view, which is that ability to sit up high or sit above and be able to look at the expanse of things, just be able to survey, right, with vision. Because a great man has to have a particular vision as well to be able to steer and lead that type of dynamic homestead or household. I'm gonna jump back into the chat. I literally have little notes here that says check the chat. So I'm gonna make sure to check the chat periodically. She says, what we use to guide and control, it is also the act of grasping control. Also is root of helmets. It's what protects and covers the head. Beautiful. So that ending piece is also really critical because it leads us right back to the ideas of the man being protector of the home, helm of the home, but protector of the home as well. And so this whole visual that we're creating, it's a spiritual house, right? It's a spiritual house with all of the components intact, and we can't move away from that. If we do move away from it, we will find that there will be an eroding of the nation that is being built. All right. So those are one of the things that I thought was important to consider. And, going back to the phrase or that sentence, the dynamics of several women and children, again, I go back to the idea or the understanding that the woman is that watery energy, right? It's that constant movement, that active and changing. There's a lot that is active and changing when you think about water. So that's important to consider as well too. And those aspects of femininity affect our, characters and our personalities and the way we show up. So, which leads me into the second line, right? I kind of wanted to ask though, if anyone, as they were reading this, if you read, prior to coming on, did you think about the idea of a great man being used in the first sentence, and then in the second sentence, the term a superior man, right? Because I thought those two different phrases or different phrases would indicate a slight variation in vision and function. But please let me know what your thoughts were. The second line actually speaks to the superior man knowing himself. It says, a superior man knows himself well enough to determine if this is the best family arrangement for his family or not. So again, we talked about, Brother Antonio actually broke down the idea of a plural bond and exactly what plural bond is referring to. And in here, when you see family arrangement, you can insert plural bond right here. All right. So Chief always says that men are a rarity, right? And so much less a superior man. So I started to think about and consider the two phrases, a great man and a superior man. And so again, I'll wait to see if anyone has any ideas as to why a great man versus a superior man was used in each of the different sentences, right? The idea of knowing ourselves brought to mind a very popular phrase that I've heard before: know thyself, old man, right? So a superior man is so self-aware, right? Is so very self-aware of the purpose of family and creating family, but more importantly, aware of the type of family structure that he can balance out, right? Or navigate rather. And so I think there's a gem here that really allows us to see as women. I have to speak from a place as a woman because I'm not a man, but I have to speak from a place where I am able to observe how that man functions. But also, I have to ask myself, where is my role in the dynamic of a plural household? And we all, as women, for the mothers and sisters and daughters out there listening, we all have to consider that. So before I jump into a little bit more, I wanted to share one of the questions that I actually would like to pose for the brothers is related to the superior man. As a superior man, how do you determine the type of family structure that is best for your self shape? How do you determine the type of family structure that is best for your self shape? All right. And I'll pause and just put the question up here so everyone can see it and go back to the comments. Chief says, we won't answer that one. I may have an unfair advantage. Yes, you may have an unfair advantage. Let me know if you can see the question clearly. I know sometimes the colors seem to like blend into each other. Brother Antonio Smith says the great man can refer to a man who can achieve great things, but the superior man is in tune enough with himself and the vision he has received from the Most High. Right. When you speak on the vision from the Most High, one of the most important parts of even the beginning stages, right, of aligning with and mating is in the stage 1 of courtship. And even then, the vision that has been given to you all and us, so whoever is, engaging in and beginning those stages of courtship, the vision is important. And a vision is a promise. And that promise, if you could function off of that vision, that promise, there's a knowing there, So I'm glad that you brought that up, Brother Antonio. That superior man has a connection or is in tune with himself. He knows himself and he's in tune with a vision that has been given to him. That's very insightful. To structure his household based on what must be accomplished, not just his aspiration to what he may deem to be a great achievement. Right. That, that goes back to, again, being given that promise, right? A promise is a vision. And if there's a divine vision, then that's a divine promise. And, we're not going to bet money on it, but that this is exactly how your journey should be, and you're going to function and move off of that, and the decisions that you make will be a definite reflection of that, right? All the time. Stam the Joy says, I think superior has to do with position, and great considers the I actually have 2 screens, so I could switch from one to the next. I don't want to go get behind here at all. But Sham the Joy actually says, I'm gonna grab it now. Oops. She says, I missed it. She says, I think superior has to do with position, and great considers the broadness of vision. I see. The broadness of vision. So, that's interesting because that brings me back to a couple of points that I came across from Noir Male, right? When we think about the original man and woman, from inception, the partnership between them is really motivated by the necessity to start family, you know. So for both the great man and a superior man, families, at the center, but the structure and the type of family, whether it includes a plural bond, will obviously be based on, again, the vision and what it is that that man has been given, right, by the Most High to accomplish, not just his own personal desires and things that he wants to accomplish, right? Because even then, it won't be a promise. You can't say, yeah, I know I'm going to accomplish this, because it's tied to an earthly desire, right? It is not driven by the divine, or it isn't, spirit. It is in spirit. I see some hints in the bottom. I'm going to scroll again. Aquia Bisa says, to be great is to be above the norm and distinguished. To be superior is to have high standards, but I didn't see how one was better than the other. I see. I see. I see. So there is the idea of one, there is one standard, and then there is another level or another layer, and the superior seems to be the other layer. Because, you I'm a woman, so there are only certain things I can speak to. There's only certain things I can speak to, but there is an understanding that, as the great man, he is able to function and navigate. But it takes someone who's superior to say, okay, I can function and navigate, and I can do this. I know how to manage the dynamics of many women, or an extended family, or family that's larger. However, that's not what I have been ordained to do, right? That's not what I've been ordained to do. So for Sister Kashia says, the superior man knows the ledge and has the knowledge, wisdom, understanding of what he is called to do. That's right. Goes right back to having that vision and that promise. One can achieve greatness and still be completely ego driven. This is true. This is true. So if it's ego driven, it still means that you are tied not so much to a promise or a purpose, but your own inclinations consistently. Sham the Joy says, a superior man can be great. A great man isn't necessarily superior. That's true. They're not one and the same. They're not one and the same. She says plurality hardly affects the role of 90% of the woman in a household. Commitment, acumen, integrity, value, and worth determine her role. The husband consort relationship is exclusive and unshared. This is true. This is true. This is true. I am going to scroll a little bit on this screen so I can see everything, and share as I go along, share with you all. But there is that understanding, as she says, that, the role of the 90% of the woman in a home. Sorry, plurality hardly affects the role of 90% of the woman in a household. And I actually think about the visual, or the symbolism of the sun and the different planets and how they orbit, right? It kind of leads you to think about the fact that the leadership, and again, going back to that helm or that lever, is the man. And so everything that, like everything that's happening within that homestead is actually controlled by him. And as a woman, you receive that instruction and you work from there. So he says that commitment and acumen, integrity, value, and worth determine her role. And Cruz Alvarez, the determination comes from what I see as my mission, my present state, along with the end result in 10-year intervals. So Brother Cruz is working with a 10-year interval. He says each interval will then be analyzed and the tools needed will be documented. And I take it that this is your response to how you determine the type of family structure that is best for your self shape. Let me see, Brother Cruz, greetings. She says, great is equal to external and earthly, superior, internal, and spiritual. All right, so we have it there, right? We have the answer right there in front of us. There, the idea of the great man is very much earthbound, it is external, and the superior man would be someone who is driven by spirituality. He is driven by the divine, covered by the Most High, guided by the Most High, and given a vision and promise. All right. Top comment and bring it up. Yes, I know, and I absolutely forgot, Brother Antonio. I just totally forgot. I kept reading, so thank you for reminding me. I'm gonna keep going. So, as we think about the superior man knowing himself well enough to determine if a plural bond is best for him, it goes back to what is your purpose, right? What is his purpose? So for the next line, I have a question for all of the sisters, daughters, aunties. I want you to tell us in the chat right now. Have you considered your ability to be a part of a plural bond? Right? And I know you're gonna say, oh, this is a yes and no question, but this question is really to have us think about whether we have considered that and considered what that looks like. Because the next sentence reads, we need not pretend that we are designed of the same fabrics of those who can support a plural bond when we are not. And though this section actually is, we are introduced to what a great man does, and what a superior man does, it also puts us in a place where, as women, we have to think about or consider, we have to consider what our responsibilities are within a plural bond inside of the community, inside of this community, right? And I say this community because there's a cultural standard that we're getting at here and underscoring that is different from wherever else you may find community. So, very important to think about the cultural standard within this community. I'm going to jump back into the chat so that way I don't lose anyone and their valuable contributions. Brother Cruz says, regarding the great and superior contrast, I see the superior concept as a self-mastering and greatness as a self-perfecting. Okay. Thank you, Brother Antonio. Says like, share, and subscribe. Kriya says, so great expands or manifests from the superior or internal. So great expands or manifests from the superior or internal. I don't think that the great expands or manifests from the superior or internal. It seems as if it would be, like if we consider a ladder or a rung on ladders, the external or the great man would be a level below, right? Because there's that focus that is an earthly bond, as she says. He gave a hint. He said that the great man is equivalent to that of the what is earthly or external. So there's that dependency of the great man on just the physical realm, right? Just what is earthly. So there may be no promise. He may have an intention, he might have a whole plan, but that's his plan. That's what he desires based on what he sees, right? But the internal is actually what is superior. That superior man is connected to a spiritual guide and has spiritual authority. Sister Arlene, Ima Arlene Adams says, a great man knows, this is 6:56. Okay, I'm not too far behind, 4 minutes behind. Let me speed up. A great man knows what the Most High has purposed him to do and has a plan. I'm going to put it on screen. Just forgot. And has a plan. A superior man can move into a superior man can move not just a manager but leader for all those within the household and community. So there are lots of ideas about the superior versus the great man, and I'm glad that we were able to actually decipher and deliberate about the differences, right? Because I think those two were there strategically, right? Really important to consider. To consider. I'm going to jump back to the question because I posed a question to the woman, but before I do so, I see a couple other and new family members joining. So greetings, Brother Lowe, the scholar. So I'm gonna read. Okay, so Chief's response is, my family arrangement reflects the heavens and my great patriarchs. The Most High has 7 fruits of the Spirit, or 7 consorts. Israel has 4 wives and 13 youth. Math has been provided. So stumped right now. So the Most High has 7 fruits of the Spirit. I know the fruits of the Spirit, or 7 consorts. So this would be who the Most High would align with. And Israel has 4 wives. I'm going to think about that. Who the 4 wives are and the 13 youth. The math has been provided. I am stumped on the 4 wives. I think I know, but I'm not gonna I'm gonna think a little bit before I say something. Brother Chris says the superior man should have an understanding of sacred geometry. Based on that understanding, he should be able to shape and place things that edify the Most High. Okay. All right. So for those who have answered, yes, I have considered being in a plural bond or plural family, actually. I had another question, and that other question was, what are your responsibilities within a plural bond inside of this community? All right. So I'm just going to put the question up for a few minutes again, and then I'll switch back to the comment section. So I think I missed Ima Precious's point. I saw a point that came up. She was saying that she wonders if the superior portion has to do with self-assessment. And I think that's also something that we should be considering, right? That's what we call that sober assessment of self, and understanding the difference, right? That superior man is able to really look at himself and identify, well, here are the things I can provide. Here are, the accomplishments or the things that I need to accomplish, and I'm prepared for it. Because I think what I'm thinking now actually connects to the very next passage, the next line that speaks to, where an Anu man would or should be between the ages of 40 and 45. And so, I think about, timelines and markers. And I think, that assessment that you're speaking about, Ima Precious, actually has to do with that, outlining where you should be, or timelines for that matter, and not based on your desires again, but that vision that has been revealed. All right, I'll jump back to the comments and shift a little. I'll shift a little to the sisters, right? Because that question that was posed about our responsibilities within a plural bond, it's interesting. I believe it was Brother Antonio who asked during our last Shema. He asked about stability. Like what is something that will help to maintain stability in a homestead or home. And there were lots of different questions, but I definitely think that when we're talking about a plural bond and plural that type of family arrangement, it's important to think about what maintains stability, because whatever helps to maintain stability, those are some of the things that we as women should be responsible for, right? And when I say that, that doesn't mean that we're the ones that create stability, because again, we have a navigator, we have that man at the helm. So that's where all of that order and light and direction is coming from. But there are roles and responsibilities, there are ways of being as women that we are responsible for exhibiting, and those are important. So Sister Kashia shares to come under the plan. Her response is to come under the plan of a superior man is something I have thought about. It is a part of our culture. I do not see it separate as if it were an option, but a divine expected structure. Mm. But again, it goes back to the culture. See, you're functioning from a frame of reference that is anu, and that's what we want. That's definitely what we want. Sister Akuya says, I have thought about being a part of a plural household. I have more growing to do. The growth that you have to do will come when you are in and under the covering and direction inside of your household. Because, okay, so within ANU, we do have a covering initiative, but I wanted to share, Sister Akuya, once you are, because remember, when we go back to, I'll go back to the courtship piece, right? In stage 1 of the courtship piece, there is an exploring of the vision that you were each given. There's an exploration of that vision and that promise, right? You are going to be inserted in that vision and promise. So we have more growing to do as women, as everyone, but that growth and development will happen strategically under that covering inside of that homestead. Sister Deidre said my responsibilities would reflect what was agreed upon in the contract. During betrothal and anything else that my head deems necessary to assign. Right. Good answer. Good answer. Yeah, the responsibilities are, again, as she says, reflected upon in the contract. And this goes back to Chief's earlier statement that, there is that plural bond is exclusive between the man and the woman. That's the relationship, right? And so when it comes to what your responsibilities are, those are obviously, they are dictated by the man. There are things that we have to exhibit, though. There are things, I think the last section that Brother Antonio explored actually spoke to jealousy and something else. I'm trying to remember. Can't remember. Excuse me. But those are things that we're responsible for controlling, removing, and eliminating, because they don't help to support. They don't help to support that movement, right? That growth and that development that actually happens inside of a homestead that's expanding, one that's focused on nation building. She says the woman and children would represent fruits of the spirit. So this is going back to the previous answer. Whoa, we're jumping around here a lot, yeah. But this is good. She says the fruits of the women and children would represent fruits of the spirit, not just those who said yes or are gettable. The Most High has set apart a special people, so my consorts and children must be superior too. That's, it, I don't, I can't even find the words. It goes back to the design, um, the idea of not being pretending that we are designed of the same fabric, right? That's an understanding. That's an understanding that has to happen with all involved, right? All the components of that spiritual home, right? That spiritual family. There has to be that not a level playing field, but there has to be that standard that's set. And so in order for that family to actually be able to expand and grow and be, based on the promise and based on the vision that that man has, yeah, everyone, as she says, has to be superior as well. Kashia says harmony in the harmon or the Harry. I'm not sure. I think so. My responsibilities is 7:06. I am 6 minutes behind. I'm moving, y'all. I'm moving. Ima Pressure says, I look forward to being in a plural bond with Anu. My responsibility is to expand what is given to me for the elevation of my homestead and community. Attuned to the needs is key. Attuned to the needs of the community is key, right? That's how you're able to help elevate the community if you know what's needed, right? Brother Antonio says, based on my self shape, my family arrangement brings about stability through ensuring each member has a role that feeds into their purpose and supports the family as well, right? So everyone involved is, it reminds me of like a business and what do you call networking, right? The networking and cooperative economics. There's everyone is involved, and everyone that's involved, sorry, benefits, but they're actually feeding back into or pouring back into what is feeding them. Top tier speakers, greetings, peace. I think I missed you from above, from earlier. So I'll just post your response as well too. The responsibility would be the same in a monogamous bond. I don't see a separation. She would serve and help the same. She should already be non-possessive and giving. The responsibility would be the same in a monogamous bond. This is true. And this is true. The reason I asked about the responsibilities within a plural bond is because, again, I wanted to go back to the last line. I think it was the last line of our previous Shema, where, like Brother Antonio underscored two things that were detrimental to that type of family arrangement. So, the question also should guide us toward, as women, guide us toward thinking about, what being in a plural household actually, looks like, and how that interaction and your interaction and your relationships, what that looks like, depending again on the structure that the man decides upon. Sister Kashia says, I agree, top tier speakers, nothing changes, submit, be receptive, produce and expand what has been given. This is true. It isn't. It really isn't different. I will always go back to that last paragraph, and I want us to reread it. I can't even pull it up, y'all. I can't even pull it up. But if somebody could find it and post it, that would be awesome. Peace, Ricochet. Peace to you as well. As well. All right. So I am so, moving slow, y'all. Oh my goodness. So we're gonna jump on into the next section of the reading. But before I do that, I want to greet the other people I see joining. I see Emmanuel, peace and greetings to you. Peace and greetings to you. Ima Precious wanted to add on. She says, Ima Queer, also remember that before anything can change, the mind first must. Ooh, just God, just throwing all the gems in there. This is Shema Anu is a treasure trove. Every Yom Shishi. Every Yom Shishi. Brother Antonio says, jealousy and narcissism. Thank you. I couldn't remember it. Thank you very much for reminding me of that. Thank you. Top tier speakers says that I think she wants to add. She wants to add that I would say being sisterly is extremely important as well. Yes, very important because I think that we are reared, right? Many women are reared in a society where the only ideal or idea that we are allowed to even entertain or explore is a monogamous one. And there is, maybe there's fear around it, maybe there's uncertainty, maybe a lot of it is selfishness. Who knows? Right? But it requires something different. It requires something very different from us when we start talking about this type of family. And so I'm pulling on it and highlighting and underscoring it because the title of this is Mastering Plurality, so we can't ignore that piece. We can't ignore that piece. Now we can't do it. Sister Kashia says, I agree. Without the sisterly bond, the flow will be completely off. Imbalance will ensue. This is true. This is true. Agreed, Sister Kashia. What needs to be changed, Imam Kuya? What is that blockage? I see. Okay. We're going to move on. How many of you sisters are fine with dying unwed and alone? Chief asked this question. How many of you sisters are fine with dying unwed and alone? Are you comfortable with trying again next lifetime? This is a serious question, not a trick question. I'm going to answer. I have this thing that I do when I encounter certain, and this doesn't have to do with, dying alone. But I have this thing that I do at times where I'm like, next lifetime. I really do. And what it does is it actually shows many times it shows that we're not, and it shows me that there are many times that I'm not in tune with a vision and that promise. And I'll keep going back to that phrase of vision and promise, because then if there is a vision and promise, you won't say next lifetime, because you're going to know definitively what is for you in the now. And, the reason that we function here, even as women, is to be mated, is to help to bring forward and family, and, to help to maintain culture. And our culture is not one of death. Like, our culture is one of life, so being comfortable with trying again next lifetime can't fly. It's not gonna fly, because the way that we redeem ourselves is now, right? It's now. It's not the next lifetime, because next lifetime will come around and you probably find yourself in a worse scenario. So the time for the fixing and the time to elevate and to level up is now, But I do wonder too, how many are fine with dying unwed and alone? And sometimes the unwed and alone is unwed and alone with youth and, children that, you just are not able to handle or control. And then they, they turn out to be ill prepared for life, because you, as a woman, are unwed. You have no covering. There's no authority in your life. You have absolutely no idea about how to function. All of it is so intertwined. I am not fine with dying unwed and alone. Ema Precious says, oh no, I'm skipping around. Sorry. I am not, Sister Kashia said, I am not trying to be here next lifetime. I choose obedience and law this time around. I am not fine with dying unwed and alone. Ema Precious says, answer to Chief, not me. Okay, let's see who else has answers. Come on. Come on now. I give you all my whole answer. Akuya says, I'm not fine with dying unwed and alone. So if we're not fine with dying unwed and alone, movements, right, should be happening. What? Gosh. With fidget spinners, okay, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Haram, I understand. Very good. I'm not fine with dying unwed and alone, Sister Deidre says. I'm reading instead of doing what I could do, exercising my point and display features. Yet I will still try to get it right next lifetime. Right, right. Because, I do consider at my age, I'm like, am I past the stage of next lifetime? Or, yeah, time, we don't have time. We think we have time, but we don't have time. We really don't have time. I am going to do a couple of things. I'm going to put a couple people in timeout. I'm going to make that decision to do that because y'all up in here acting out inappropriately. So Chief's question, Sister Arlene, sorry, says, I do not want to die unwed and alone. I'm trying to move through as quickly. What do you think about Man City 70? I'm not sure what this means. Y'all have to help me and explain some of these to me because sometimes I read things in the chat and I'm like, I don't understand. So please, if somebody could help me with some of the items in the chat, that would be helpful because I read them and I'm like, I'm not sure. Ema Precious says, so if we do not will to die unwed and alone, then we should all be in courtships, correct? Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Movements. Put in those papers. We should be in courtship, all be in courtships, correct. We should be. Should be, could be. Putting these words into action, of course, or at least have put in courtship papers to support that truth of your heart's desire being mated. So she says, why would someone want to court you, a hottie precious, if you're 30 plus and still claiming you are trying to get yourself together? You would be past your prime, so what else are you spending time doing? I see. So at this point, it's really about if you're at a certain age, you're beyond, we are, those of us who are falling in that category, like we are, because it's a group, right? Many of us are beyond our prime. And some of us are beyond our fertile years. So they have to be, skills, they have to be levels of character development that we come with. These are the things that will allow for us to be considered, right? Especially when we say, okay, we should all have started that courtship process. If that is indeed the case, then I think what's being said here is that we need to have certain things in place already. She says, hard-headed old females are repulsive, and subversive feminists and in subversive feminism and man hates with a touch of laziness, and courtship would be a tough sell. This is true. 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 That's why, when we think about, again, going back to We need not pretend that we are designed of the same fabric of those who can support a plural bond when we are not. That goes back to, just considering what your responsibilities are, what you bring to the table. Who are you? Coming into a going into a courtship or even entering into a homestead, right? Those are things that are important. And if we're hard-headed old females, then we may consider being courted, but that may not be the case. And it may not be the case because guess what? If we're not willing to be reflective of the light we're given, if we are not coming with complete submission and receptivity to what we're being given, no one wants to deal with that. No one wants to have to work around that. It becomes a challenge. It becomes a challenge. Sister Kashia says some of these comments have been deleted. Thank you, because I was looking at it as well and trying to delete a few of them. I got a few, but they were, I don't know where they came from. All right, thank you. Yeah, some of these, I don't know, they make no sense. I had to block a few because I was like, what kind of question is that? That don't make any sense at all. All right, so let's move on because we spent a good portion of time here. I'm not sure if you all could see me. Let me check the time to make sure I'm moving. I'm not behind. Okay, good. I'm not behind. Okay, so Sister Precious, if you are listening, you may not be able to chat, but I think there was a mistake in terms of you being put in timeout. That was so wrong. That was so wrong. I have to behave myself so that way I don't get put in timeout. All right. So the next piece that we're going to look at is if a man is beyond the age of 40 and he still has not mastered his reptilian, bestial, and human mind, he is not ready for a union of any sort, as he's not unified with his own inner workings as of yet. So the pieces that pop out here is the beyond age of 40, because the Anue speaks to men between the age of 40 and 45 and what should be happening at that stage in their lives. And the mastering of the reptilian, bestial, and human mind are also pieces that stick out to me as well. For those of you who are still in the chat and still with us, still listening, it feels a little bit strange because there was a lot going on in the chat, but we're back. Everything's cool. Well, not back. We're still here. So for when we talk about the reptilian, the bestial, and the human mind, we're really talking about a man who is tethered to earthly things, right? Earthly desires. And for those of you who are interested in connecting some of what we're sharing to lectures that Chief Yuya has given, Marriage and Thangs is a I hope that's how you pronounce it. Marriage and Thangs is another great piece to actually jump on and listen to. That one, pardon, excuse me, my feet hit the stand. That lecture given by Chief Yuya is also another great lecture to listen into. It is on the Anu Life channel, YouTube channel. It is it's a couple of hours, and it really goes into detail about men and families actually, and what that should look like, but also what we should be thinking about when we're deciding on building families and moving forward and even expanding families. So that's something to think about. The reptilian, bestial, and human mind, as I said before, directly It's referring to someone who's tethered to only what is of sensory, somatic, earthly. So there again, we're gonna go back to the same thing. I feel like I say repeating the same thing. It goes back to that spiritual connection. All right, I'm gonna pause a little bit. Ema Precious. The response to the Ema Precious statement, Sister Kashia says, most importantly, walking in an honest assessment. This is true. The family would be led based off of the vision of Yah. Okay, I don't know. All right, Chief says, as males are often looked down upon for not having their stuff together, I said stuff, okay? A stunted female is viewed with the same disdain and avoidance by a great man, despite what the Anglosphere tricks men into. You know, the so noir male really speaks to that type of programming, right? It really speaks to that type of programming where the man's value is actually diminished. So much so that he has a diminished view of himself. The man portrayed in noir male, right? And for those of you who are saying, well, noir male, what do you mean? I'm talking about Noir Male is a book written by Chief Yuya, and in there you'll find a lot of gems in terms like historical references and historical breakdowns of why we have family breakdowns, why there are breakdowns in communication. All right, breakdown in communication between melanated men, melanated women, and breakdown within the family. Hold on, there's so much happening in the chat. Okay, Ema Precious is back. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm getting distracted, y'all. That's what's happening. I am so sorry. I apologize because the chat seems to be moving fast and I want to keep track of what's happening. Okay, so yeah, so if he is reliant on his base needs or base nature, then he is not ready for union. But as Chief is saying as well, women who are stunted and are stuck and have not grown, they're viewed with disdain as well. So no one will want to actually mate with you, right? Or with us, right? No one will actually want to align with that. So it's really important for us to actually think about what are responsibilities? What are we bringing? What are we bringing? What are we bringing? That's very important. And that goes back to self-assessment, right? It goes back to understanding what cloth you are cut from. Like, are you a superior being? And can you align with a superior being? I think I always hear the sisters, Sister Precious and Sister Deidre, refer to this phrase, water seeks out its own level, which is true. However, in the secular world, what happens is, some people are bamboozled into thinking that, hey, if I'm this way, regardless of how many youth I have or how old I am, or how many people I've been with, I'm still entitled, right? That's the phrase I'm going to use. I'm still entitled to be with, what is the phrase? Man of my dreams, or this person has to have this thing and that thing and that thing. Those are ideals that someone placed in our heads, in our minds. We were programmed to think so. So we're walking around totally lopsided, right? And expect that we will be able to marry up maybe, or find someone who has, like all of this value, but we bring nothing. We bring nothing to the table. That won't fly. It appears we have a bitter Gremlin. I know. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna ignore that gremlin. Right. I'm gonna ignore them completely. Which leads us to, so if there's anyone who has anything else that they want to share, I know the chat is popping, but we're not gonna give gremlins any attention. No, sorry. Not today. Not today. I keep bouncing this thing. I'm sorry. So the last piece to this is 736. So it's the last piece to this, because it's 736, we're going to kind of move into closing up or wrapping up. But the last piece says, it is easy to say you must have more, but with more comes more onus. And that just, it brought me to a very popular phrase, right? To whom much is given, much is expected. Right? To whom much is given, much is expected. So the more you have, the more responsibility you take on, right? I'm going to say the more you have, the more members in your family, the more members that are participants and creators and so on, a part of that family arrangement. It means that the navigator now has an expansive view, right? And that's because there's just so much in within his homestead. So his vision, or his, even, his line of sight has to be expanded, because there's just so many more participant members of the family. I was going to say participants, crazy, more members of the family to actually think about. And you know it made me think about the idea of the male principle providing life, like, and nurturing to the female, right? And so what we see here is that this kind of loops right back to the very first statement, that the great man can manage the dynamics of several women, because that's his role. Like, that is what he is divinely wired to do, to nurture the female principle. That doesn't mean that there isn't nurturing happening in both ways, but that's part of it. And so this dynamic often accounts for a lot of, the need for attention that happens sometimes with us as women. But it's really important to understand, how to scale and dial that back respectfully, right? But again, the idea of more always reflects responsibility. So it reflects that there's more responsibility in terms of the man's responsibility, but in terms of the responsibility of the woman, there's now expanding lateral protection. So you're probably saying, lateral protection, what do you mean? So women do offer a sense of lateral protection for the men, because they, like, we are to a certain degree a buffer, right? It is a buffer. So when you think about the ship on water is also sitting in water, right? And it's buoyant. So there's that separation, right? That the women are providing, because they surround that man. So it's really important to think about, just how the idea of family arrangement and plural bonds have all of these benefits, and they're all toward making sure that we are, successful nation builders, right? We're successful at that. I'm going to jump into the chat really quickly. Brother Antonio says the preservation of the group is only acceptable to these spirits if it includes them getting their own way. If allowed to nestle within the family, they can wreak havoc. This, right? This goes back to the same statement that you made, not you made, but the ending statement to the previous section or previous paragraph that was discussed, right? There are just certain mannerisms and behaviors that cannot function and should not and have no place within the, plural families, right? And it really actually goes back to everyone involved being responsible for their self-shape, all right, and how they function within that family. But again, this sentence, this last statement, it goes back to prove um, that the man is indeed like the biggest, the biggest, the what you call the person who serves, right? He's the biggest servant, right? Because here you have him controlling the dynamics of all of those involved and making sure everyone's well-being is in place. So that's a critical role that I think is um, not necessarily looked at or highlighted and underscored and respected and appreciated in the way that it should. Ema Precious says, my earlier reply was, if I am 30 plus and past my prime, then I would seek mastership based upon newly acquired skills such as obedience, humility, and receptivity. Right, right. Because then, there isn't a fight, there isn't a struggle, there isn't a rejecting of the light that you've been given. You're receiving it, and you nobody has time for that, right? Nobody has time for someone who is above a certain age and still putting up resistance or is rebellious, right? Because if you're rebellious, you might as well just go somewhere else, right? But Antonio says, looks like the big bucks are rolling. Oh my goodness. Well, I have no idea why, but it's just, there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening. There's a lot happening. Ima Precious says, most importantly, walking into a homestead knowing the honesty of what value I have or do not have via a sober assessment. I'd also need to know what my community has verified as my gifts, skills, and talents. Right, right. Because everything that we're talking about here is based on a cultural imperative, right? It's based on a standard that is a new standard, and that's a superior standard. So whatever skills that we say we have, whatever we say, okay, I have my bag of this, I have my bag of that. Those things have to be vetted by our community. So I will end. This was a beautiful build. Give thanks for those of you who were able to come on and share in the chat. It's always a pleasure sharing time and space with my family, whether it's public or private, and having conversation and building and, deliberation. Deliberation. Brother, I'll say this, Thompson Young, I did not say that the woman is the protection. I indicated that the woman was the protection. The man is a protector. The woman offers what we consider lateral protection, in that there is a upholding of culture, right? There's a buffering that women offer and provide in that type of family arrangement. It is not equivalent to the protection that a man offers. All right, and Chief, I'm gonna just highlight Chief's response. The female comes from the midsection or rib. The ribs protect mid-vital organs. She surrounds the man's vital presence on the ground while he governs from above, protected by Yah. Thank you very much, Chief, for that. Thank you very much. I have some more to add. I have some more because I did not get into that. I hope that answers your question. That answers your question, Thompson Young. Thank you for your question. Chief Yuya also says, we saw it, Sister Precious. The key is the newly acquired skills that were a part of honest assessment and work that is actuated. Some sit on their behinds as connivers scheming on superior households. And you can't have that. I am am not sure which one of these comments are actual comments. So I am actually afraid to actually reach over and select some of them. I am new to Anu. Could someone help me understand what it is? All right. I'm not sure. I'm sure someone will be able to jump in and share a little bit about what Anu is. But we are a community. Anu Nation is a community. You can find out more about Anu by exploring our website, Anu Life Global Ministries. .org, and there are lots of other videos that where Chief breaks down a lot more about Anu and Anu's culture and our lifestyle. We are, yeah, I'll say that much because I do want to try and wrap up. Ima Precious says, this is true, Chief. Give thanks for the question. Willfully, it helps those stuck on schemery. Thompson Young says, I get it. All right, and another suggestion, Jackie Weaver, is that you start exploring the Anu Way book. The link is in the description as well. So the Anu Way will be able to, give you a lot of details about the culture of Anu, who we are and what we do. All right. Peace, everyone. Greetings, Brother Vermon. And as you greet us, we are closing. Give thanks for another spirited conversation with you all. Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. For those of you who are interested, again, in becoming part of the Anu Life Global Ministries community, being a part of the Anu Life Global Ministries community, you can register for orientation and to become a part of what we are doing at anulifeglobalministries.org. Peace, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Is it a full moon? I do not know.